And as is sometimes the case, I came today prepared to do a talk, thinking that I was going to talk about all the ways over the past year that I have changed, that I have noticed differences in my practice as being the director of Temple Buddhist Center, because it's been 1 year now. Really, that's next weekend is actual 1 year, but with our annual meeting, I consider that to be 1 year. So 1 year has passed since I received the pretty much the greatest gift of my life, was being director of Temple Buddhist Center. This is right up there, of course, with my teacher, my teachers, my wife, my refillable gift card from Black Dog Coffee House. But unfortunately, I'm going to have to save that talk on the ways that I've changed for a different talk day, because I was compelled actually last night. In fact, you can even see just a few scribbles. I normally have everything all typed up nice and neat on paper, because what was very, very alive for me last night was still some vibration and some resonance from the Temple Buddhist Center Nature Hike yesterday out at the Overland Park Arboretum, where a group of us came together at 8:30 in the morning, and we stayed until 11:30, and we had all kinds of meditation walks in nature, and discussion about our experiences, and it was very, very rich for me. And so I felt compelled today to talk a little bit about those experiences. So this past week, preparing for the annual meeting, of course, which is today at 10, and it goes from 10 to 10:45. We're going to bump into 10:30 service a little bit, and then 10:30 service will be extended. So preparing this week, it's been a very, very busy week. Tuesday, we had video Dharma and discussion. Thursday, we had chanting at the Nelson Atkins Museum at the Guanyin Asian exhibit there. And then, of course, Saturday morning was the Nature Hike and the annual meeting. So it's been a very, very busy week. And the reason why I'm saying that is because what struck me so profoundly at being at the Nature Hike yesterday was the contrast. The contrast, how all the busyness and the things to do, the phone calls to make, the places to go, the items to get, all of them simply fell to the ground like so many bright yellow and red leaves. And in fact, I think there were probably as many of those items as there were leaves. So this contrast was very, very profound, and it struck me as we were sitting there in the brisk morning air, surrounded by all of the sounds and the smells, and just being together in that place. Being in nature is such a potent reminder of our beingness. Eckhart Tolle has a great way of explaining this in one of his earlier books called Stillness Speaks. And he says, when walking or resting in nature, honor that realm by being there fully, completely. Be still, look, listen. See how every animal and every plant is completely itself. Unlike humans, the animals and the plants have not split themselves into two. They do not live through mental images of themselves, so they do not need to be concerned with trying to protect or enhance those images one way or another. The deer is itself. The flower is itself. And as I was pulling into the Arboretum yesterday, I was greeted by a fawn. She was just hanging out by the front gate, munching on some things. And it was that impact that just kind of stopped everything, just stopped. Even the busyness of trying to get set up for the retreat that morning, everything just stopped. And there was just presence, just awareness. So this vivid contrast between doing and struggling and efforting and striving and the contrast with just the incredible simplicity and peacefulness of being also has the effect for me of highlighting some of the similarities. So I was noticing this incredible contrast, but then as I went into contemplation, I began noticing the similarities. For example, the breath. How natural the breath is. And I use that word specifically, strategically, because we sometimes forget that we're natural. We are nature. And that's why coming to nature, for me, really helped to remind me that I'm as natural as the fawn, as the mum, as the tree, as the breeze, as the leaves. So think about the breath for a moment. You're not doing it. If you try to manipulate the breath, you'll probably get dizzy. If you try to stop, then you will simply pass out and the breath will start up again. It's completely natural and automatic. You're not doing it. There's no one there doing it. The changes. The trees are such a vivid, beautiful reminder of the changes that nature goes through, and subsequently that we go through. In the Buddhist terminology, it is called anicca, and that is that everything is in the process of becoming something else. We're in constant cycles of change. And again, we're not really doing it. I know it may look and feel like it. Now I'm working out more this week, so I'm really changing my metabolism in my body. It feels and looks like that, but change is always happening on so many levels that we're not actually manipulating. And the cycles that we find ourselves in, cycles of abundance, cycles of, I hesitate to use the word lack, but when we notice some deficiency in our life. One of the attendees at the talk, at the hike yesterday, Liz, she mentioned, and she works out there. She's one of our connections for creating more events out at the Arboretum. And she made the observation that recently, with all the rains that we had, there was extensive flooding out at the Arboretum. And on her walk that day, she noticed how many creatures had been displaced, moved to other places of the park. And she made that comparison with all the flooding that we've been experiencing over on the East Coast and the displacement of people. And she talked specifically about the beavers. There's a couple beaver dams out at the Arboretum, and the dams had been completely washed away. And she said the beavers have already the new ones started. They just picked right up where they left off. And it was interesting that we noticed the subtle difference and I don't want to mitigate anyone's pain and suffering as they experience loss through a devastating event such as a flood. But with the beavers, they simply began building again. They're not suing anybody. They're not raging at nature for having caused this event. They're not blaming anyone. They just simply start up again. Nature has these wonderful lessons for how to just be. Lessons in equanimity. To be present with, as the Buddhist said, the 10,000 joys and the 10,000 sorrows as they simply rise and fall, come and go. So, what are we to do with the awareness of these contrasts and these similarities that this world offers us on a daily basis? My teacher would say to me, be aware of the awareness of the rise and fall of these things, of the experiences themselves. And I know that's a little confusing, be aware of the awareness of these things as they come and go. But there is another step past cultivating the observer. As we cultivate mindfulness, cultivate meditation, and become the observer, the awareness, watching the rise and fall of phenomena within this form and outside in the external world as things come and go in consciousness, there's another step, awareness of the awareness. The famous spiritual teacher Ajahn Chah of the Thai forest tradition would call this the one who knows, the one who knows. And this awareness of the awareness is simply a felt experience, a complete feeling of knowing. There's no intellectualizing or conceptualizing going on whatsoever. No imagery, no visualizations. It is simply knowing on a deep level. This deep peace, this quote-unquote faith that each moment and experience is a visitor sent by nature for our own soul's awakening, brings about liberation. It's just complete knowing and nothing more. That everything is perfect exactly as it is. And so a big thank you to those of you that came out to the Nature Hike, and those of you that were unable to attend, don't worry, this was very popular, and we fully intend on having more, perhaps a spring one. Somebody even mentioned a winter one, but they have a little house that we could actually sit in and then step outside for 5 or 10 minute hike in the sub-zero temperatures and then come back in and talk about our experience as we shiver together drinking hot cocoa. So the teaching today really stems from just this moment right before there was a labeling of seeing the little deer, or right before the moment that I watched the breeze shake loose a couple hundred beautiful yellow leaves that fell to the ground. There's a moment of just pure awareness and experience of that without all the judgment and the overlay that comes afterwards. All the, oh, that was beautiful, that was gorgeous, I'm so happy to be here. All of that is overlay. There is a moment before that. It's very subtle, it's very quick, and it's just absolute pureness of consciousness, pureness of awareness. There's no overlay of anything. It is that moment that you're really connecting with nature. It's a reunion of sorts, remembering who we really are. I'd like to share in closing this poem by John Clare. It felt, when I read this poem, that it really kind of embodied on a poetic level what we were experiencing as we spent time doing meditation, walking meditation in nature, and just being present with all that surrounded us. All nature has a feeling. Woods, fields, brooks are life eternal, and in silence they speak happiness beyond the reach of screens and books. There's nothing mortal in them. Their decay is the green life of change, to pass away and come again in blooms revivified. Its birth was heaven, eternal in its stay. And with sun and moon shall still abide. Beneath their day and night, the heavens open wide.